Still working on El Turbo here. So I got the solenoids and pretty much everything. The wires tidied up pretty good and stuff. A few more things to hook up. Next thing I was getting done was the turbo switch itself. We got the two 36 volt switches, or for the 36 volt side, and then the two switches for the 24 volt side. And you would use the standard thumb throttle and leave the switch as it is, because it's in the downward position, contacting these two. So 24 volts would be on, and you would run like normal. Then when you're at top speed, you would kick off, kick in your turbo. So that turns off the bottom two switches and turns on the top two. Now we gotta get her all wired up. We'll run our wires to these upper two switches. That way we don't got wires down here confusing things. We'll get more done. Got everything in the front pretty much all connected up. Working on getting our fuses and grounds and everything all together. Using our diagrams here. Working on getting the batteries wired in the El Turbo cart. We've got our 3 separate grounds all together on our first battery. And I've got our 12 volt circuit right here. Just got to tighten it down. Got a 20 amp fuse in the fuse holder. I don't have the jumper wire on either one of the batteries. And then I gotta tighten these down. But we're gonna do a systems check. We'll check the 12 volt system, then we'll check the 24 volt system, and we'll check the 34 volt system. Alrighty, this will be systems check number 1. Got everything all wired up as far as I can tell. First switch here, the left switch, turns the speed controller on and off. This switch I've got wired in to turn the 24 volt solenoids off, so they're not on full time, because our switch is always on. So we've got our 20 amp fuse in. We've got the positive hooked up to the 12 volt battery, negative hooked up to the 12 volt battery. Don't have anything else hooked up at this time. So when we turn the switch on, we should hear a click. Well, that's a plus. Okay, now it's on. We're on the lever here. It should also hear a click to hear it click off. Well, 12 volt system seems to be a check. Alright, now we're going to do a 24 volt systems check. We have our grounds hooked up to the 12 volt battery. We've got our jumper wire from 12 volts to 24 volts. And then we've got our positive for 24 volts with our 20 amp fuse. So we'll turn the controller on and the solenoids. Should start to lurch by the button. Uh-oh. Alrighty, had a wire loose for the 24 volt systems check, but I think we're good to go. Alrighty, now we're going to do a 36 volt systems check. So we got 12 volt battery hooked up, 24 volt, 36 volts. 30 amp fuse for the 36 amp circuit, 20 amp fuse for the 24 amp circuit, and another 20 amp fuse for the 12 volt circuit. So we've tried the 12 volt circuit, we've tried the 24 volt circuit. Both worked fine. Let's try the 36 volt circuit. Well, some blew. That 30 amp fuse didn't hold up. I guess it didn't like 30 amps or 36 volts right off the rip. 36 amp circuit test systems test 2. Blew out the first fuse, 30 amp fuse. So we got a fresh 30 amp fuse in here. Tried just kicking in 34 or 36 volts by itself, and it blew the fuse. So let's try our normal system with the 24 volts and get it going, and then kick in 36 volts. So we'll try speed controllers on, solenoids on, use the thumb throttle. Turbo. Alrighty. Let's try this again. Thumb throttle. Turbo. Well, our systems check is a success. I guess it's time for a test drive.